girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Females need you just to trick me, trick me, trick me, trick me.
Hi, I'm Ryla Marzano, the host of Take Care of Your Body by Rye. I hope this is your new favorite space for all things health, wellness, and healing. Each week, I sit down with doctors, dietitians. Hey everyone, today I'm honored to welcome a very special guest. Hi Miranda, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's been such an honor to chat with you already. I think you're amazing, and I think you are truly the definition of what I call turning your pain into passion. So do you want to introduce yourself today for the listeners? I mean, you're so amazing, truly.
Thank you so much. Yes. Hi, I'm Miranda. I am a chronic illness influencer, professional dancer, and journalist. I'm from Seattle, Washington, but I've been based in New York City for the last 8 years. I basically was diagnosed with POTS syndrome when I was 19 years old. It took a lot of years and trial and tribulation to figure out what truly was going on. I joined, at that point I was younger, and I joined a couple chronic illness support groups, especially like on Facebook and different things like that. But I still felt extremely isolated, and I wasn't really sure who to turn to. I didn't know anyone that had what I had. So kind of as a last resort, I joined Facebook support groups. So it's still social media, but I found them to actually be a bit depressing. A lot of them were more focused on like what was wrong with all the symptoms and challenges, rather than, okay, how do we work through that? How do we fix that? How do we inspire? And so out of that, and kind of feeling isolated and also not knowing where to turn, I decided to create my own chronic illness account, which is called Undefined by POTS. And the mission behind Undefined by POTS is in the title. It's this idea that I do have a chronic illness, and everyone in this community, as you know, like has a chronic illness, but it makes up part of who I am, but it doesn't define who I am. That's not the only attribute to my life, to my story. There's so much more. And so my target audience and kind of community has been young women just like me who are growing up, don't really know people with what we have, and are looking to turn to somewhere for support and also just inspiration. So that's a little bit about me.
You're such a queen, and like the fact that you're a professional dancer, I'm just like, holy shit, like you're a girl boss. I think that inspires me. I'm 19. I don't know if you knew that. So I'm the age that you were when you were going through like the first
Wow.
bit of this. And that just gave me chills, because I'm like, okay, like I used to be a yoga instructor, and now I can't really do that right now. So I'm like, okay, like I can get back to that. Like you're giving me hope. So that was just so inspiring to hear. But something that you said that is like something that I've commonly seen in these support groups is it's very like negative. And like, yeah, chronic illness isn't always sunshine and rainbows, but I think with anything in life, like if you want to find something sad or something that's going to go wrong, there's so many things you can pick in life. You have to really rewrite the story and create a beautiful life and find positives in your day, because if you don't, then you're just going to have a negative mindset, and then that comes with actions, and it's just not going to be, the best life you can live. Like I don't want to spend, my time here being like, wow, like I'm chronically ill, I can't do anything. Like I want to figure out ways to, put the chronic illness in the passenger seat and take, wheel of the car and drive the car and, create a better life for myself. So I really admire that you've done that.
Thank you. Yeah, there's something about it. It's like you said, it doesn't mean that grief or grieving your old self or old body is excluded from the narrative, but the goal was always to destigmatize it, like to destigmatize, yeah, I might look this way, but something might be wrong with me, or there might be, the way my body doesn't work like the next person. So I think it's just the idea of keeping all the realness to chronic illness, that there are highs and lows and a lot of dips and a lot of challenges, but just making it visible and also destigmatizing it.
100%. And it's so sad that like the society we live in, just because like you and I were talking about, like if you don't see a cane or you don't see a boot or you don't see a cast, they think that we're perfectly fine, and not all illnesses are visible. And I think you and I are living proof of that. So many millions of people live with a form of dysautonomia. That blows my mind that still doctors and, individuals within the community don't know about it, because it affects so many. But it's like there's such this stigma where it's like, I can't see it, so it can't be true. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with us. And I think the work we do is really important in that sense. Like, it's important to know, like, you truly don't know what someone is dealing with just by looking at them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it's not visible. You can't, like we were saying, you could prove it. I always joke, like, how many ER visit paperwork? Like, do you want to see? I have all the diagnosis letters printed out. But that's why it is a little comparable when it comes to invisible illness to like mental health and mental illness as well, because it's like that person is presenting in society and going about their day as normal, and it's like you said, you just don't know. You don't know what it's like to be in their shoes. You don't know what they can or can't do. And there's this idea, even to this day, of there's just a little bit of, not a little bit, there's a lot of confusion of, oh, you can do this today, so why can't you do it tomorrow? Exactly. And that's when I think for the regular person, it starts to feel like, is this real? Are you, faking it? And that's what I call POTS as a dynamic disability. That means it's going to affect me differently each day. And I tell people it's not life ending, but it's very much life impacting.
I love that. No, it's so true. It's crazy. Like, I feel like I have different symptoms every single day, and I'm like, well, where did this come from? But it really does. It affects you differently. And one day you might be able to be more active, and then the next day you might need to lay on the couch. And I think that's what's so frustrating when people want to hang out with you. It's like, you never know. Like, just because you see a friend getting coffee on Instagram, you don't know what they've had to prepare to be able to go out and do that, or, to go to a concert. Like, they might have had to rest that entire week. Like, it's so frustrating when people are like, oh, like, I want to see you. But it's like, just because I'm posting it doesn't mean it's right in that moment, or it doesn't mean that I didn't need to like prepare multiple days before to rest and get my body to cooperate. And I think like what you just said is so true. Like, each day you're going to have a different symptom, and educating people on that is so important, because, it doesn't mean we're faking it. It just means our body works differently every single day with this.
Right. And also, I love that you use the word frustrating because I've unfortunately different points of my life dealt with this feeling of that, almost like there's this stigma almost that we enjoy or like sink into not being able to do things, like, oh, I'm just gonna sleep and lay on the couch and almost kind of just like take advantage. And it's not the case. It's like none of us, I can speak for myself, would choose this if I had the option, but it's also the cards I was given. But I that's where a little bit of like society versus our community of, we very much, especially when it comes to canceling plans, it's not that we want to, but sometimes we don't have that choice or that privilege or opportunity to show up.
1,000%. And then it's like, if I did even show up not feeling well, would you want me to even be there based on how I feel?
Right, exactly.
Like, is it worth in the beginning, right? Is it worth me showing up maybe with no energy, not being, the best version of me I can be while dealing with chronic illness?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what it's been like to navigate being a professional dancer with this? I'm sure you've probably gotten, maybe, hopefully not, but probably some like questions or judgmental opinions. Again, hopefully not, but share and educate us. And yeah, tell us what's up. Like, what is that like? Is it hard sometimes? How do you navigate that world? I'm interested.
Yeah, so I've been dancing for as long as I can remember, literally since I could walk. So it's a long-standing passion of mine. There was a point in high school when I had, that junior year era where it's like, okay, I need to decide, am I pursuing this professionally, as in like dedicating my Bachelor of Fine Arts to it, or my college degree to dance, which I did. I graduated from the Ailey Fordham program in New York, so I was training at Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, which is one of the top modern dance companies in the States, and thank you. And I also went to Fordham University and Lincoln Center at the same time. They're actually within 5 blocks of each other, so
kind of convenient.
Yeah, it was very convenient, running up and down in Hell's Kitchen. So I started the very first time. So for context, I know that only around like 30% of POTS patients experience actual syncope episodes where they're fainting unconscious. My first episode, and by episode in this context, I mean like fainting and passing out and unconscious, was when I was 7 years old. So I was pretty young. It was always triggered by medical things. So I watched my sister get a shot, and as one of my doctors said, you have a very sympathetic nervous system as well. Like, you see other people's pain and then collapse. So a lot of those episodes growing up, I was documenting, but they were also all related to blood or medical related settings. So I was dismissed at that point for having more white coat syndrome or just medical anxiety, being afraid of doctors. And then what happened is there was a point in college in 2018 where I had my first faint and syncope episode in public. And unfortunately, the first time in public, when it happened, I was traveling by myself on a plane in the middle seat. And at this point, it was pre-diagnosis. So I was 19. And I started feeling it come on. And I was like, oh my gosh, we haven't landed yet in New York. Like, I have nowhere to go. And it's really hot. And I dinged the help button for a flight attendant who probably just thought I wanted like a cranberry juice or something. and then I passed out onto the window passenger in their lap. And that was one of my longest syncope episodes. I was unconscious for like 20 minutes and, going through those yellow masks they pull down. So they made an executive decision. I wasn't wearing my medical ID at that point because I had no diagnosis. I didn't know. So they made the decision to do an emergency landing of the plane, which was,
whoa.
It was very intense. I can smile and laugh about it now, but of course at the time, it was deeply traumatizing. And I'm being wheeled out of the plane backwards since I'm on a wheelchair, with my head down, and every row of the plane is looking at me. And when you're that age, right, it's, you feel so vulnerable. You're a teenager. I'm also like a girl, and it was extremely vulnerable. And I ended up in the ER, and so that, long story short, that was the first time I realized something was wrong, and wanted to pursue my diagnosis. But to kind of circle back to your actual question, why I bring that up is when I would disclose something like that, or my diagnosis, or a syncope episode to my college and to school, it's almost like I just mentioned heart, like the word heart, and they immediately got frazzled. Like, I think people hear heart condition or disorder with heart rate, right, and they kind of jump to conclusion of like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, something's wrong with your heart. And that's not it. I've had a lot of EKGs to test that, but they would kind of out of concern, I had a mentor who wanted to send me home on medical leave for school, and that wouldn't have helped me. All I needed was like 2 days off of school. But in the long run, it's been challenging. There's ups and downs. I mean, I'm freelancing now. I've been with 2 companies since graduation. I do feel safer in dance environments. I try to explain to people, but somehow when I'm moving more, I think because I've been moving and dancing for so long since I was little, it actually helps circulate my blood, and I've, knock on wood, I do feel dizzy sometimes, but I haven't actually had a full fainting episode in a dance setting or dance context. But I can definitely, when adrenaline clicks in, and with performing, there are times where I can feel my heart rate raising, and that can be nerve-wracking, but it hasn't stopped me from still taking class and being a part of the community.
1,000%. And I'm so proud of you for not letting that define you. I mean, I can't even, going back to the plane moment, I can't even imagine what that's like. I wonder what the freaking flight attendant did. I mean, you probably don't know, but it blows my mind that like that just happened. Like, that's the thing about like POTS and forms of dysautonomia. It's just like boom, and then suddenly you're on the ground, and people are like, what the heck just happened to this girl? Like, she just was okay. And no, because so much is going on inside us, but on the outside, maybe, unless you see like sweat dripping down or whatever, like shaking, they're like, what? Like, what the heck? Like, this is out of a movie. So I can't even imagine what that must have been like for you. And I'm really proud of you for overcoming that. Did the ER doctor like give you a diagnosis then, or when did you originally get that? Okay, you have POTS, and how did you navigate that?
Right, so at that point, I had no idea. I had a pretty traumatic overnight at the ER in Jamaica, Queens, in New York. From the point of the plane, obviously there are spots in my head I don't remember, but I do remember being put on a stretcher straight out of the plane, brought into an ambulance, and brought to the ER. I think that was my first overnight ER visit. And deeply traumatic again. And then they ran more tests. They did an EKG. They found a lot of things came back normal, other than having very low blood pressure, which just kind of runs in my family. But what did happen is my uncle, who is my main family in New York, he also happens to be a vascular surgeon. And he came to the emergency room overnight and helped me that night and drove me back to his apartment where they live. And he knew I had these salt cravings. He knew I was dizzy a lot. He knew I fainted because he had helped me through that. And he kind of put it together and was like, I think you have this thing. And also I fit in the demographic, it's mostly people like us, like young women. And
right, smile, right on, literally. But it's like, damn, man, you don't even gotta carry babies, and you're not prone to POTS. Like, what's
right?
Come on, guys.
Must be nice.
Must be nice, right?
Nice. Of course, I'm like just added to the list.
Right. Like, I'll take it. Claim.
Right. I give credit to my uncle for being the one to say, like, I think you have this thing called POTS. I had no idea what it was. I remember doing like a quick Google search of postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and I fit almost every symptom, even down to like lack of temperature regulation. I mean, there were these specific things. I was like, oh my gosh, my hands and feet always feel icy.
That's me.
That's you too.
No, like you're reading, you're like, claim, yep.
Even the other day, I shook hands with someone, and they were like, what? And it's summer, and it was New York City, like outside, so it's humid and hot. And they're like, what? Whoa, why are your hands so cold?
Oh, what's going on? But Ross was amazing for that. We love him. We love him for that.
Yeah. So just to kind of go down the timeline, since then he recommended I try to find a real diagnosis, and really thought I had this syndrome. So I searched, and because I have family in Chicago as well, I ended up seeing a doctor in Chicago who was, I think, just a regular GP, but he referred me to the neurologist because he also seconded the opinion. And I ended up waiting for that neurologist for over a year. I waited for the appointment. So I had to wait that long just to see him. So this is a year later, thinking I have this, but not sure. And then I finally go in Chicago to this neurologist, and it was a little comedic in a way, the timing, just because even during my diagnosis appointment, this is what I tell people, even during my own diagnosis appointment, the technician/nurse who started hooking me up for the sweat test, and I also ended up doing the table tilt test, I started feeling lightheaded as she's hooking me up in these wires. And I said, and my mom's in the room, and I kind of signaled to my mom, like, look at her, because she knows the cues at this point. And I say, well, what if I pass out? Like, I'm hooked up to all this stuff. Can I get out? Like, move? And it was very dismissive. She said, like, you won't, oh, don't worry, you won't faint. Like, that would make for such a crummy appointment and such a bad day. Totally, basically telling me I won't faint.
Are you in my body? Like, revoke her license.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's, and I'm also like, this is the clinic for what, like, it just didn't make sense in the context. Like, this is why I'm here, is like feeling like, so why would you tell me I wouldn't faint? Anyway, the timing was she was still in the room, and when the neurologist walked in, I passed out immediately, hooked up to all the things. So she took a step back for the rest of the appointment, and it got really quiet, because it was almost like I tried to ask you and you were very dismissive. So anyway, after the table tilt test and speaking, all the tests I did, and speaking with the neurologist, they did find sustained tachycardia in my table tilt test, and that's when I was diagnosed with POTS syndrome. And I was also, I'll never forget this one moment when I was prescribed beta blockers, a certain medication, at that appointment. And my mom turned to the doctor, and this conversation we recorded with consent, asked him, if she was your daughter, would you have her take this medication? And he thought about it for a minute, and then he said no. So that was one of the first signals to not always just blindly follow doctors' prescriptions, especially when it comes to medication. So I've since then have taken more of a holistic approach, but that was the start of my diagnosis. And I relate to you, and you said leaving either the hospital or the appointment in tears, because I remember after feeling all the tears came, and I felt relief, because now I knew I wasn't crazy, and there actually was something wrong. But then I also felt really sad, because I didn't know what that meant for me, like 5 years down the line.
Exactly. And it's such a shock, and like you're there, and you're like, like I try not to cry in doctors, but I always do. Like, I don't know why appointments just make me so emotional, because I think, like, when you have, and like you can kind of relate, I'm sure, but like when you have something like this, you try your best to not acknowledge it almost, and then it's like, I mean, obviously we acknowledge it when we advocate for it, but when you go to the doctor, it's like, hey, this is about you this time. Like, you're here because you have this. And I'm like, when it's in front of my face, it's just like, oh man, like all the tears come. And especially if you see like a dismissive nurse or doctor, like in your case, the nurse, it's just like, how dare you treat me this way? I don't feel well. My body doesn't perform properly. Like, this is the clinic for what I have going on, for my condition. And how sensitive sensitive this condition is. It's crazy, by the way, like how emotions and stress and all of this can astrobate it and make it worse. But it's like, you know, she should know as a professional how sensitive our condition is, and she's dismissive and leaving. I'm sure like that on top of getting the diagnosis just was the perfect storm for you to cry. And it's such a vulnerable moment to really have to sit with, okay, I have this forever, but what will my forever look like? And I think it's just, you don't know. You don't know, especially then you go to Google and it's like a lot of people try not to talk about it or don't talk about it. And you're like, so am I alone in this? And you feel so alone. You feel frustrated, you feel isolated, and you feel like you're stuck in a body that doesn't know how to work properly. So 1,000%. It's the tears always come, and I'm like, you know what? My body's trying its best. I'm gonna let them.
It's hard not to, you know,
Exactly.
especially if there's a certain level of vulnerability that I feel like unless you've had kind of these journeys and an ER visit, whatever, you know, in whatever context it may be, you might not fully understand it until you've been through it, to spend years not knowing like what's wrong with me. And also why is my body just randomly giving up different times or failing me basically. And I think there's a certain vulnerability, and I know that for me that's when it's hard not to be emotional, because you're hearing someone basically like tell you what's not working.
And it's just like the spotlight, and you're like, oh my God, and it comes literally like a car and it hits you. Speaking of that, have you seen The Crash on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
You need to watch it. It really, really pissed me off. So essentially, I'll talk about it on here for everyone listening. Essentially, this girl did drugs and she got into a car crash, and intentionally killed her boyfriend and her
I have heard about
and
this.
claimed that she had POTS as the defense. And that just really pissed me off, that you're using a condition that is an invisible illness to claim that that's why you literally intentionally hit a car against a wall at like 100 miles an hour. Like, what?
Whoa, I didn't know about that detail.
No, yeah, her description of POTS was that it's a movement disorder. And I was like, excuse me? It's an autonomic nervous system condition that affects things your body needs to think about doing. And it can't no longer do those functions on its own. So like a movement disorder, girl, what? So it really, really pissed me off watching it. And I was like, how dare you like shame the invisible illness community by using that as your defense to try and get out of, you know, your sentence.
Wow, I didn't, I now that you're describing it, I do know of it and I've heard about it. I've watched like the little trailer preview they do on Netflix for it, but I didn't know she used that as part of, which that's really, because that's the amount of visibility that has on Netflix.
Right.
You don't want to give people like the wrong impression. That's, yeah.
Your next
Wow.
post, literally, I'm gonna see this tomorrow. Undefined by POTS, like posting about this. I'm gonna eat it up.
The controversy.
Literally, I'm gonna eat it
Bring
up.
it.
I'm gonna be commenting. I'm gonna be like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
We
but
should
like,
talk about it.
literally, how dare you do that? Like, and then her not even knowing what the condition is, and like the way she's portrayed throughout the documentary, you'll see she's like moving normally and like literally doing drugs, smoking, like taking pills, like doing mushrooms, da 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 da, and like then suddenly it's like she has POTS. I'm like, look, like you can do certain things while having POTS, but the way that her lifestyle does not look like someone
Doesn't look
has
like
to
when.
take care of themselves extra because of POTS.
Yeah, even when you mentioned drugs and the lifestyle, I'm like, that's just not sounding like, if you really have POTS, like there's certain things that's like you just can't even do. So
Now you know what you're watching tonight.
yeah, I
Oh,
have my watch list. I'll be reviewing.
oh my God.
That's so funny.
It goes back to, I guess, my next question. What is something people don't see every day about living with POTS?
It's a great question. I think what my mind goes to is somewhat of the mental toll and also sleep. I think that's a thing that people try to relate to when you constantly feel tired. But I always tell people, like, there's a big difference between fatigue and just feeling tired. there's also a metaphor I try to use to make it make sense to people. I say, like, you know, when you charge your phone, like, imagine if you just plugged in your iPhone at night, but when you wake up the next morning, it's only at like 55% or 65%. And you're like, why isn't it? Like, it should be at 100. That's how I feel with POTS, with waking up. So I think something people don't see is probably part of the struggle and mental toll of maybe it looks like comparing yourself to others, or feeling like I can't, like, it's going to take me an hour to really slowly get out of bed, or there's a reason, like, my circadian rhythm is off, like, I'm not sleeping enough, like, so I think those are some of the things people don't see. I would say the other part is the actual real medical journey. I don't think people understand. You know, it took me over like 8 years to find a true diagnosis. And I think people don't understand, like, it's not 2 + 2 = 4. It's not also you walk in and then you get your answer and walk out. Like, there's the amount of dismissal is still alarming, especially for young women. And it's, you know, and not every patient, every doctor is told and taught in school what to do and bedside manner and how to be, but patients aren't always taught what to do. Like, there's not a course for patients to learn how to advocate for themselves. So when you're told something, you might just say, like, okay, yeah, I'll do it, or sounds good. You aren't taught to ask for that second opinion and almost push back. Like, what do you actually mean? And how would this medication would it actually help me? And what are the side effects? So I think that's the other part that people don't see, is like, a lot of us have been trying, you know, to find a diagnosis for a long time, and it's not just for fun. It's like we're trying to figure out an answer for why, like, this, the idea of this is just, at the end of the day, this is not normal, and so why am I dealing with this even though, like, my siblings or my friends aren't?
Exactly. And again, you feel sometimes crazy if you don't have the diagnosis, because you'll look into the mirror and you're like, okay, but like, I visibly look okay. Why do I feel so shitty? And if you're not getting that confirmation or that validation from the doctors, from, you know, the people that should know, you're like, okay, is there actually something wrong with me? And I think that journey is so frustrating. And that's why I'm really grateful that social media, as bad as like it can be, I'm glad that it has people like us doing what we do, because someone comes across our post or my post, your post, whatever, and they're like, okay, wait, I'm going to bring this to my doctor and mention this terminology, and then they can discuss further and, you know, research further and see if it aligns with their symptoms. And I think that's why it's so important to advocate, especially for yourself. Going back to the advocating for yourself thing, it's like, you know, if I agreed in my case where the doctor said it's all in my head, it's just anxiety, it probably would have taken me so much longer to get diagnosed, because I would have been to the physiatrist or psychiatrist or whatever, and would have been being treated for a completely different thing and would have still felt horrible. And it's like, you have to know your body best. And if something isn't right, that is worth bringing up and pushing back if they're not, you know, understanding you when you say that. So thank you for mentioning that. It's really, really important. And it's so sad because it also affects mental health too. And people don't realize that.
Yeah, that's another side of it that just is so important. It's not just physical, and especially with POTS, you know, we're talking about the vagus nerve, your autonomic nervous system, everything is connected. And I think, yeah, there's some misconceptions about, okay, there's your physical body and then there's your mental health, and they're separate, but like you said, it really can affect your mindset. It can affect your survival mode when they talk about fight or flight. That's a real kind of tricky, like, tightrope to be walking on every day. Like the feeling of, if I'm in public and it's hot outside, I know for me, like, I had an episode when I was in Spain and I was young and it was just really, really hot. And, or even if people start talking about surgery or something, like, that's enough for me to start feeling lightheaded most times. So it's this weighing of, like, I don't want to have anything happen in public. So how careful do I need to be, and will I be fine? Also with flying, it took me a while. After that, again, I was 19. So it took me a while to also even with my mom and parents, like, okay, how, that was traumatizing kind of for everyone. So it's like,
Right.
I want to feel like I can fly by myself again and now not get triggered or nervous. So, but yeah, part of my diagnosis journey in 2021, I did start seeing more of a trauma-based therapist who diagnosed me with complex PTSD, which is another mental health disorder that's less, I would say, not as known about. I think people think of PTSD as one thing, and they don't know the difference of when it's complex versus acute.
Like, what? There's so much more than that. Like, yes, that is a thing, but there's so much more than that. Oh my God.
Right.
Like, oh, how was war? I once had someone tell me they were like, oh, my friend has PTSD, and I asked them like, how was war? And I was like,
I was gonna mention that, but I didn't even go there. Yeah, the veteran, like just one category.
But
Like
yeah, God forbid there's only one form of trauma. Like, thank you to the veterans. We're appreciative of what you do for us, but there's so much more than that. So what has that been like for you? And do you think, I mean, complex PTSD obviously impacts the nervous system as well. Do you think that can trigger your POTS, or your POTS can trigger the complex PTSD?
yeah, I think that emoji where it's like the hand in hand, where they're like shaking hands.
The besties.
You know, they kind of go together. They coexist of it. They're definitely very much intertwined. I think they come into play in my life and the most in the context of medical settings. Because I grew up fainting and passing out unconscious in medical settings, my brain and body now know or think that when I go into any medical setting or hospital or office, even the lobby room, that I'm going to faint. So it's built up to this huge mindset of like, okay, I'm near a doctor, I'm in a medical setting, my body's gonna fail me and I'm gonna end up unconscious on the floor. So that's where the mental trigger comes into POTS, because obviously POTS makes me way more susceptible to fainting in general, but the medical side is not being able to separate, okay, there's a threat versus like I'm safe. And I'd say that impacts sleep as well, like the ability to self-calm and soothe and relax and not let your mind like get wired about. For example, if I had an appointment tomorrow, like when I'm going to bed, I'm already maybe thinking of like, maybe I'll fail the appointment because I won't even, this has happened numerous times. And in 2020, I ended up with a concussion because it's like I can't get through the appointment. I'm fainting before I'm doing the tests. And so then I still don't have the medical data because I've passed out. So I would say that's where they link up the most. And that's at that point, my EMDR therapist had not run tests, but for this, in this case, he had me answer and go through different intake forms, and he basically said like, you have all the hallmark signs for this.
I'm proud of you for getting that treatment. I think a lot of people like, almost stay in that, oh no, like I have this wrong with me, and then they don't get it properly treated, especially with mental health stuff. Like, I think mental health gets a bad rap where it's like, okay, like it's not physically maybe debilitating me as bad. I'm going to go try and function within my life. And then you realize the longer that you let it go untreated or, without talk therapy or EMDR, it gets worse. And you're like, wow, now I can't function. And I always tell people like mental health is just as bad as physical health issues. They really go hand in hand, because if your mental health isn't good, your physical health won't be good. And if your physical health isn't good, your mental health won't be good. So I'm really, really proud of you for taking the steps and seeing someone for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. They're very much intertwined. I still believe they both have stigma. I think to this day, even therapy has stigma. And I think yeah, just destigmatizing both and seeing how they can make you feel empowered. I always admire when someone's taking a step towards healing and, talking through their traumas rather than quieting. I think in my life, in all different contexts, I've had this phrase, just the people I've been around, quite often, like this phrase that recurs, that's people telling me, oh, I didn't know, like, you would want to talk about that. So it happens quite often. Like, they may think or assume, like, that's scary and that's uncomfortable and that's vulnerable for you. Like, she might not want to talk about, like, the diagnosis or what's wrong with her, or this trauma or that trauma, but I try to remind people, like, I'd actually much rather talk about it. And I know not everyone is like that. I do know that some people would rather not, maybe. But for me, it's a reminder of, like, oh, this person that I'm close with in my life is thinking about me and they take into account that I have POTS, like, they didn't forget.
Right. No, I agree. And like, that's something that like, I once had someone go, oh, well, I didn't invite you because I didn't think you'd feel up to it. And I'm like, why are we assuming how I'm going to feel? Like, that really upsets me when people do that. Like, just because we're chronically ill doesn't mean we don't want to be invited. I think it's more kind and I don't want to say attractive, but it's more wholesome if you reach out to your chronically ill friend and you're like, how are you feeling? I have this event and I would love for you to try and make it. But I agree. I think like to a certain extent, it's like, wow, like you are considering my condition and you are remembering that I do have this that I deal with, because it's more frustrating to try and like reiterate it so many times to people. And like, I think at that point, it's like, if you're continuing to explain to people that you have this, are they your friend? I don't think so. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it gets to a certain point with specific people where just this assumption, if they think you aren't genuinely, let's say you're canceling plans or you can't show up for them right now, if that's frustrating, I mean, I've had it with, I'm not the best texter, but even with like texting back different times, I've experienced a little bit of, okay, like I'm starting to feel a little resentment, and also maybe you don't feel like my excuse is valid. And then I have the other friends and most of my circle at this point who are super understanding, and even if I'm, an hour late because something fell off or I wanted to make sure I was fine, they understand. But yeah, I think already deciding for you is an unfair judgment, and also like in the long run, it's like it doesn't matter in the long run anyway. Like, let the decision up to you if you can go or not, and then the invitation's out there and it's like you feel included. Like, I'm all about inclusion, and that's kind of part of my page. It's undefined by POTS, but like it's more than POTS. It's people. It's the dysautonomia umbrella, and beyond that, also, it's anyone who has a diagnosis or not that's trying to find one. So,
and like, that's what I love about your page so much. It like is this safe space for so many different conditions and umbrellas of conditions where it's like, you can just relate. Like, there's something on there that you're gonna be like, that's me, I relate to that, or wow, that's interesting, I didn't know that. I loved the celebrities with POTS post you did. I think it's nice to be able to see people like, I admire you that you're a professional dancer and you have POTS, and you don't let the POTS define you from doing something that you've always loved to do. And I think when we as chronically ill individuals see celebrities, performing or acting or singing or whatever other industries there are, my brain is like, I don't know, doing what they're doing while having POTS, it's like, I can do it too. It gives a little bit of hope and relatability. And I really love your page because it's a safe space for all these different conditions, but also there's something where you can relate or feel seen. Like, you don't log off undefined by POTS feeling like crap. You feel seen, you feel included, you feel at home. Like, when I found your page that night, I was like, like I took the deepest breath ever. I was like, I feel relieved. Like I'm safe. Like I can just be myself in the comments and not feel judged. Because I think something that is so scary on social media is talking about your struggles and being vulnerable and having these people avoid or not bring up your illness because they don't know how to handle it, or unfollow you because you're talking about it. And like then it makes you feel like shit for having to talk about it, but then it's like, I'm going to have this forever. Also, it's a condition where people get invalidated and dismissed. I want to educate them and be able to maybe save someone's life, you know? So finding you, speaking up and sharing what you do inspires me to continue to do the same thing. So thank you for having this beautiful space. Again, I will keep telling you, it's truly, truly so beautiful.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That makes me feel so great because I don't always know how it's received. So I do really appreciate that. Every so often I get a message from someone kind of relaying the similar message of like, I feel less alone. That's the common thread. So thank you so much because, you know, at your age, I felt extremely isolated. And I was like, I literally don't know one person in person. Like, I've never met anyone that has this. So there's almost this self-gaslighting thing. Like, is it real?
Right.
Like, do I, you know, like, I know I can find it online, but it's a strange feeling. So I really do appreciate that. And that's, I know you fill out the form, which the highlight will come out soon.
I'm seeing on GD. I'm like, these people are like, it's just so inspiring. It's so freaking inspiring to see the kind of people that you're highlighting, and then you click on to their page and they're nurses or they're, you know, teachers or everyday people, and you're like, you are so amazing for being the type of person you are while dealing with something so hard. Because I think like with pain, you have two options: like sit on the floor and eat Ben and Jerry's for the rest of your life and say this sucks and like stay stuck there, or you know, get up, you eat the Ben and Jerry's, of course. Like, yes, we
right. Still eat a little bit of it.
Really. You cry, you say this sucks, and then you keep going the next day and you rewrite the story. I think that's the most impactful, influential option, is to continue to live your life despite dealing with the hellhole of this condition. And that's what I love about the people that you highlight. They just truly inspire me to keep going. And it's always a positive spin to it. It's not like these Facebook support groups where it's like, I just finished my surgery and this, and it's like this negative post. And
It's
like,
kind of scary.
Hey, this is the dark web.
I was like, I need to close that chapter.
I'm like, unlog out, sign out, get me out of this, because like it just makes you, oh my god, that could happen to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're playing
it's
so many
scary.
It's so scary. But with your post, it's like a beautiful quote, and it's like, never judge a book by its cover. And I'm like, yeah, like I feel good here. That's nice. That's healing. I'm gonna look in the mirror and say that. Like, it's affirming. So that's truly what I love about it. And
oh my gosh, thank you so much.
And what's interesting about the in-person thing is my last ER visit, the nursing student actually has dysautonomia, and we became friends just by me being in the ER and, you know, all of that. And
wow.
I call her when I don't feel well, and, you know, we hang out and all of that. But it's really beautiful. Like, it's a small world. And, you know, what's so interesting is like, the person next to you could have it, but it's so important to open your mouth and communicate and talk. And the second you're like, oh, I have POTS, then someone could say, oh, I do too. Like, you have to create the safe space. So
thank you so much. I appreciate that. And that was one of my goals, is I was seeing all these pages, and a lot of them were front facing, like the influencer themselves is like, POTS is blah blah. And I had this idea of like, of highlighting just the idea of like, let's bring in real people. They're not influencers, nothing's paid, like this is all not for profit, but let's highlight real people's stories, just the everyday people from all parts of the world. Like, we're now at we just hit the 100 person mark for how many people have filled out the form. So 100 people from all across the world. We've had Australia, New Zealand, London, Brazil. It turns global, so it starts to kind of grow. And that's where I had the goal for a long time. I wanted to build the community up to 10,000 followers, not just for the followers' sake, but just to be able to grow the community, to be like, okay, this isn't just New York or Seattle. This is trying to bring together as much people with POTS and dysautonomia as possible. And so once we hit that mark, I was like, okay, now it feels like the growth is starting to take off. So I'm excited to continue growing, and also just like you, that's how I literally connect with people. And I also just wanted to add the funny thing of, and you can switch accounts when you're on Instagram.
Right.
So my personal page is all dance, and there's this pressure as a dancer to kind of have your Instagram page be your online resume. Like, I only post professional shoots and videos, versus Undefined by POTS is much more like uplifting, it's highlighting, it's real, it's vulnerable. And so I also noticed like my mindset shift when I switch accounts, because I almost feel like the authenticity of Undefined by POTS versus like just posting another photo shoot I did. I don't know, it's interesting how it switches mindset between accounts too.
Right, it really, really is. And it's like, it's nice that like you probably feel like you can be the most authentic version of you on Undefined by POTS, and what you're going to see is going to make you feel good, whereas on your like personal page it's probably all dance stuff, and like maybe some of them do have POTS, or like maybe Ether Stanless. I know that's like highly connected probably for athletes and people with POTS, but it's not the same level of community, I'm sure. So you probably feel more refreshed to be on Undefined by POTS.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of want to like throw this in there, like as we start to wrap this up, do you have any tips or advice for people, maybe with loved ones who are chronically ill, or maybe they're chronically ill and they're listening and they want to kind of have that talk with their friends or family and educate them? Maybe they have some grandparents that don't understand. They're like, what do you mean you don't feel well? You look fine. The stigmas. What do you want to throw out there? Any tips, any tricks, any, honestly, follow Undefined by POTS. Like, be like, hey, here's this page. Like, look at what it will help you. Like, have a field day. Bye. But any tips that you want to give for maybe someone listening who has someone with chronic illness, or someone who's chronically ill and they want to educate?
I would say, so I just in my own context have dealt with the family members or extended family who aren't familiar at all with what this is. I think the biggest challenge is if people around you don't know what it is, they don't know how to respond to it. So all they know is that, oh, something's wrong, or you might have something wrong with you.
Right.
I would say there's a couple books which I guess I could either send to you or mention. I know that the Dysautonomia Project made one of them that was helpful for myself and my parents. But I think the biggest thing is people like us are searching for validation from our closest communities and families. So being able to say this is what it is, and also to clarify what it's not. The amount of times someone, I'm around, and it's all just by mistake or ignorance, but the biggest misconception are two things. That is, they mix up the word autonomic, which just means automatic for any system of the body, with autoimmune. So POTS is not, and that's a separate like little umbrella. So when we're talking about autonomic disorder, we're not talking about an immune disease. I also tell people it's not a disease, it's a syndrome, it's a disorder. And then also kind of clarifying like the ways that it affects you. I think that's important to tell people, and why. I would go as far as to say, I think unfortunately it depends on the family and friends and people, but sometimes you really need the real stuff, as in the real documents, the diagnosis letters, the emergency room papers, to really show people visibly, like, this is what I have. And it helps for them to read or see it so that it's not imaginary to them. Because I think the less it feels imaginary to people around you, the more validating it will be when people around you are like, okay, this is what she has, we might need to take it slower. And then the last thing I'd say is when you're traveling, whoever you're traveling with, make sure they know what you have, and that you might not always be able to keep up with everything they're doing.
I love that. No, it's really, really important. I think educating the people that we're around, because again, like, it's easy for our brain to see, like, okay, this person looks fine from the outside. So maybe that's the case. And we need to really remember to be cautious, because just because someone looks fine doesn't mean that they actually are. So many chronic illnesses and mental health struggles are invisible, and you need to remember that. And I think sometimes it's easy to slip the brain because, we don't have POTS on our foreheads, or, complex PTSD written on our foreheads, or anything that we deal with. But I think also making sure, like, if someone that, you love or interact with does have a chronic illness and maybe they don't want to talk about it, just creating that safe space, like opening the door, and maybe they don't want to educate you or talk to you about it, but just saying, like, if you ever do, I'm here. I think, like, opening that door and creating the safe space is truly, like, the big thing. Like, I don't want to tell someone about my POTS if they don't make it a safe environment.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
if you judge me, no. Like,
Yeah, or if it feels like a chore, like you don't actually want to know about it.
oh my God, it's so weird. I remember once, like, I told this guy that I was interested, and he was like, oh, well, in that case, I don't want to, like, date you. And I was like, bye. The door's right there.
Right. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
I think chopping off that block of like anyone who's not validating or there for you, like as the years go by, you're like, all right, you're not for me. Also, I don't want to be around you.
You're an asshole. Like, what even? That's just crazy. Like, and I think, again, like, the people you surround yourself with truly matters, because we have so much limited energy, again, because what we deal with. I don't want to have to deal with friends that drain me and make me feel like shit about myself, as I already feel physically like shit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You just need the people behind you, not weighing you down. That's like so important.
Exactly. You are just truly so inspiring. So my last question for you today, and then we'll get your socials and all of that, is, if someone listening today feels completely alone because of chronic illness, what would you want them to hear?
Well, I would want them to hear, first of all, that even if you feel like it, that you're not alone. If you are able to think of yourself like, on this world and zoom out for a second, the further you zoom out to where, your home, and then your town, and then the city, and then the US, and then the globe, there's so many people who are going through this same exact thing, and no person's story is the same. Everyone has a unique story and journey and reason why they were dealt these cards, but also reason why they got to where they are now. But I would try to tell those people that feel by themselves, that it's important to know you're not, and you have to find, whether it is online or in person, finding the people who will be your people, or as we part of my family and family friends say, finding your quarterback. It's like that person that's behind you through everything. That will be very important for your journey. But I would say, between zooming out and also trying to envision yourself in, a month or a year, things will get better. And part of the process is the resilience, even though sometimes you don't, feel the best or feel strong or I feel like inspiring others today. But there are plenty of people who benefit from feeling inspired and who want that. So you're not alone if you have chronic illness. There's a whole team of us, just people like you and me in all different parts of the world. So no one is truly going through it at the end of the day, actually, by themselves.
1,000%. And again, I want to thank you for being you. You're such a ray of sunshine in such a dark, community, but also condition. And I think the space and the community that you've created truly matters. It matters to me more than you know, as I've said, and I will keep saying a million times. It makes me feel less alone. And you just you impact the world so much. So please keep doing what you're doing. And let's get your Instagram. I know you kind of mentioned it in the beginning, but if we want to follow follow you? What are the social media platforms that you do for your POTS advocacy for us to maybe feel supported if we're struggling with the same thing?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's so kind. That's very sweet. That's like exactly why I do it. So I'm very thankful. And thank you so much for having me on here. My socials, so it's just at undefined by POTS on Instagram. You can follow me there. You can also click in the bio on the link tree. There's a link, a Google form to fill out a highlight form if you'd like to be featured on the page. Even if you don't have a POTS diagnosis, we're open to highlighting people with any types of chronic illnesses. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for truly being inclusive as well. I think that's something that we need more of in the world, and just the space that you've created probably will inspire other people to create maybe their own little space or, big space or platform or whatever it might be. So you are truly a girl boss and you're a badass. I hope you never forget that. And we might have to have you back on for part 2. I feel like I could chat with you all day.
I feel the same way. It always goes by so quickly. Right? So that's so great. I know. Maybe we'll have to do a little follow-up.
Part 2 follow-up. And
part 2.
We're going to stay in touch, obviously. You have a new friend. Little Floridian bestie right here. So
yes.
And
I'm always happy to connect. It's such a joy because it's like, oh my gosh, I found another person. Like, they know what it's like.
All in a room, and we can just have horror stories of the medical gaslighting and the symptoms and experiences and just like a laugh and trauma bond, literally.
Yes, yeah. It never gets old.
Never does, Shout out to the nurse that told her she wasn't gonna faint, and then she did. Hopefully you're listening.
Hopefully you're tuning in, because that did not work out for you.
Did not work out. Like, how can you even be in the medical field like that? I'm just like, some of these people, they should, require on the MCAT or whatever nurse's exam that's called, I don't know, to be empathetic and be kind. Like, that needs to be a requirement. I don't know how some of these doctors are making it.
Yeah, bedside manners. That could be my next post in addition to the Netflix is let's talk about, the struggle with doctor and medical professionals who don't necessarily actually embody bedside manners, and whether you feel like they're trying to rush through the appointment or they're not actually listening to what you say or just not believing in you. It's like, okay, that's the whole point we're here, is to be listened to. So that's a big one.
Yeah. But thank you so much. You are such a ray of sunshine, and I loved doing this with you. And you will have my support till the day I die. So.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And thank you for bringing me on. And thank you so much for everyone listening and for supporting Undefined by POTS as well.
We love you. You're the best. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. I hope you have a good day and I hope you have a healthy, feeling good type of day too.
Exactly. Back at you. No symptoms, hopefully. Manifesting. Manifesting no chaotic symptoms. I don't want to faint hanging up with you.
Right?
Literally. Like, hopefully not.
Keep it simple. Yeah.
Exactly. Bye.
Oh my gosh. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.